All right, so I'm just going to talk about my instruction for my ELA classroom. I'm an aspiring middle years teacher. Um, and before I do, before I plan any sort of lesson, I always think about what I want students to get out of the experience. And I thought back to what we learned in the first class and we talked about was what's the purpose of education? And for me, it's continuous improvement every day or striving for continuous improvement and understanding that learning is not a linear process and that there's going to be days in which we learn more or less, but always striving to get a little bit better, a little bit stronger in everything we do every day is what I would keep at the back of my mind when planning every lesson, especially in ELA. Some of the approaches that we talked about, the one that really stood out for me was the sociolinguistic approach. From what I've gathered, no two class is the same. What worked for one year for one teacher, you might have an entirely different class the next year. And classroom complexity is a big topic right now as classrooms are getting much more complex. There's many students. There's a wide range of skills from students who are very proficient to students who um, have English as an additional language. So I think allowing students to bring their own personal experiences and cultures into the classroom is a great way to keep them engaged, and they can kind of shape their own learning experience and allow teachers to kind of, I guess, adjust their instruction towards what the class really finds interesting. Um, just to touch on the banking method by Freire about how students are like empty vessels. I don't necessarily agree with this. While I think it might be effective, I think we learn more from each other than we do from one person simply telling another person what to do. Um, when I look back at some of the things we talked about in the resource fair, one that stood out to me was I believe it was Lane's group with the language experience approach, where students kind of bring their own personal experiences. They go on like field trips, and then that kind of their experiences kind of shape instruction. Um, I believe this is a great way for students to kind of connect ELA to like to their personal lives, which is what at the end of the day we want them to be able to do at the end of class is be able to bring their literacy skills with them to whatever they end up doing for a career. Um, and then one thing I think this relates to is just formative assessment. Um, I believe formative assessment is the best way, not only for students to explain what they know, but for teachers to be sure that they are understanding what we're trying to accomplish with them. From what I've gathered, summative assessment doesn't necessarily always get the best information out of students. Whenever there's a time constraint or like time pressure, a pressure situation like that, I feel like students aren't giving what they necessarily know in the best way. So assuring students that you value participation and observation when we have class discussions, and then whether it be like a writer's journal or reflection, I think they're great ways for students to kind of explain what they know in a way that's not super pressure for them. Um, but it's not to say that summative doesn't have a place in my lesson, in my instruction. I do think at certain points, like I do kind of agree with the developmental theory in that there needs to be some sort of output. Students need to be able to show that they can meet certain outcomes, and sometimes summative can help with those things. But I do think that formative assessment, specifically what we've been doing in this class with writers' journals, I think are a great way, or whether it be class discussion to just kind of get knowledge checks from students. I think that's a great way for students to kind of explain what they know and not be in a situation where they are tailoring their answers towards what they think they should answer. Um, Another tool that I hadn't really thought of before this class was Scarborough's reading rope. And while it does talk about some basic stuff like how no two skills in literacy are more important than one another, um, I do think it applies in a middle year's classroom as well. I would be sure to make sure that we're not spending as much time on one subject than the other. I really liked the example that we talked about in class about how if you were at a basketball camp and 2 days straight of dribbling would make students not want to participate anymore. So I think, like I mentioned, this is why I think a sociolinguistic approach is important, allowing students to kind of choose what they want to get and what they find most interesting. I think it honestly will help them learn quicker and help them become more engaged. And I think I just back to formative assessment. I think reflection, since I'm in middle years, it won't just be ELA I'm teaching. I think that reflection, collaboration, it goes cross curricular. I think this is something that you build the foundation for in ELA, but you apply it in everything you do. And yeah, I'm a big person. I'm a big fan of experiential learning. So I believe students learning from each other, you know, and pair that with activities like Daily Five. I really enjoy the concept of allowing students to choose what they find most interesting and the books they find most interesting. I think they come to class more engaged, and I think you get more excited students, and you get students who want to learn. So just to summarize everything that I would do, I believe a sociolinguistic approach with a great deal of formative assessment, a lot of reflection, and a Daily Five framework fits in really well to this. I think Daily Five lessons every day. I remember as a kid we had what was called Deer Time, drop everything and read, where it was 15 minutes of just independent reading. I think using time like this just to practice Daily Five, it doesn't have to necessarily be an hour, I don't think, but maybe 20 minutes to half an hour of Daily Five every day, mixed in with whatever you're doing that day, whether it be short stories, read alouds, readers theater. I think all sorts of things we covered in this class are really great additions to what I would put in my ELA classroom. But yeah, that's about it in terms of how my ELA classroom would look like.